prayer is prayer. God is God. The house of God differs from all of us. Mm-hmm. And, to me, respect the church. It's an institution of Creator. Not the man that stands in front of the pulpit. Mm-hmm. Not him. You don't pray to him when you go in there. Mm-hmm. You pray to God. So it's God's house. You got to respect it. And you have to know that, we respect it. The elders, we still respect it.
It's been really something. This church has had its days. Mm-hmm. And it's showing. I'm now seeing it. I even haven't been here for a while myself, but it's really showing. And it would be nice one day to see what small stuff we can do to maintain a face again for my grandpa's church. It would be nice. I would like to try and start either trying to maintain that relationship again with my grandpa's church's congregation people, mm-hmm. and show them and share with them maybe an insight we can all do together to work towards a good way to heal and try and restore our own place of ground.
Adam Soos here for Rebel News. Politicians and social media pundits were quick to condemn the residential school programs when, over the past year, mass grave sites were discovered across this country. They were right to do so. What happened at the residential schools is tragic and unjust. Regrettably, aside from the occasional Trudeau photo shoot or a seemingly sympathetic tweet, I sadly suspect that this tragedy shall fade and become for many just another of the seemingly endless woke social media trends that have come and gone. To me, this would be unacceptable. From the beginning, the conversation surrounding residential schools has lacked the precision and sensitivity required to address so delicate a subject. First Nations people have repeatedly told us that they have known about these graves for years, that they know that many in the graves sadly died of tuberculosis or other disease outbreaks. They also know all too well, often firsthand, the extent of the abuses that took place in residential schools. The reality is that their stories are nuanced, authentic, and humanizing. Their stories are real. They do not reduce these tragedies to political talking points or statistics.
So where's the balance? But you don't hear because we don't talk about it, You see? And we're the most forgiving people in the world. Mm-hmm. The Indigenous, we forgive everything. Mm-hmm. And this is what's happening. We're going to hurt. Mm-hmm. We got to hurt. Yeah. Because those little babies never got to go home from Kamloops. Mm-hmm. Never got to see their land again like we're standing here.
The aggressive and politicized dialogue reverberating throughout social media and society is not coming from First Nations communities. Many of them, in fact, suggest that the conversation is deliberately divisive and contrary to the spirit of truth and reconciliation. Simply put, for many, the politicization of this tragedy dishonors the children who died.
These two great cultures that founded this country, the white man, I'm going to say white man. I know it's racist, but you're white, right? White man and the Indigenous people. We built this country, nobody else. But we've been parallel. We've never crossed over and said, brother, let me have some tea with you. Never said that. And I've never said, come and eat my food.
Despite the troubling history of residential schools, many First Nations people are deeply faithful. Their Christian faith is an intimate part of their day-to-day life. It is in fact a vital part of their healing process. This divisive conversation, which so often excludes or overrides First Nations voices, has contributed to the arson and vandalism of 53 churches to date across Canada. Sadly, many of the places of worship affected are located on First Nations territories. It is, unfortunately, once again, the First Nations people of faith who are suffering. The rhetoric of privileged politicians and pundits is once again trampling on the way of life of First Nations people.
We already believed in God, and we knew about love, we knew about forgiveness, we knew all that. And we had our own laws, we had our own institutions of government.
Today I am humbled to have been invited to Tsuut'ina Nation lands to learn and listen to the people about their culture, their heritage, and their history.
Well, my uncle, Dick Starlight, that's Ruby's grandpa, but that's my uncle. And we always used to go to church on Lent, you know, the Christian thing. And there was a church, there's a small Catholic church below the hill there. It's all fallen apart, and now they took it apart. And then him and Henry Dodging Horse, they used to go to church every Wednesday evening. And we all used to do that too. So anyway, so they were walking home, and it was a bright moonlight. It was during 40 days, so early spring. Mm-hmm. And then they saw the church just the way you see it. It was in a vision. Both of them saw it. Then my uncle, he had 13 head of cattle. And how do I know? We used to steal them when he's away in town to rodeo. Well, he won't say anything anyway. Yeah. Anyway, so he sold those, and he had horses, and he did what he can to help build a church. And then he dedicated this land. This is his land. And then just like everything fell together for them, all the funding, everything, because it was a vision of a Catholic church. Mm-hmm. And so up and I don't know what the attendance is here, but our church, for whatever reason, the attendance has fallen back. But to give homage to my uncle, that was his vision, this church, and that's why it's here. That's why it's standing there. Mm-hmm. And they saw it during the Lent period, and him and Henry Dodging Horse, two of them.
So that's wonderful, and it's so interesting how very often we'll hear narratives about how almost like the Catholic faith is being forced, which there was certainly some of that in residential schools, but from this story, it seems like it was birthed from the sort of spirituality of your uncle, right?
Well, this church anyway, but you got to remember, we weren't just heathens when at contact. Mm-hmm. We actually believed in God, and this to us was the Garden of Eden. Because everywhere else in Europe, it's been overrun by war and everything. But at first contact, we were at peace, and we're one with nature and whatnot. And so time went on, and prayer is prayer, God is God. The house of God differs from all of us. Mm-hmm. And, it to me, respect the church. It's an institution of Creator, not the man that stands in front of the pulpit, mm-hmm. Not him. You don't pray to him when you go in there. Mm-hmm. You pray to God. So it's God's house. You got to respect it. And you have to know that, we respect it. The elders, mm-hmm. We still respect it. Mm-hmm. Because we're baptized. I'm baptized. Mm-hmm. And, just right now, I'm hurting. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean I don't believe in God. I don't believe in a church, because before they put the water on my head, I said the Holy Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. So I already said it. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that the basis of our culture. Once you say it, once you make a vow, you got to stand by it. Mm-hmm. Even though you kind of move away for a while, you got to eventually return back to it. So respect my sweats, respect my Sundance lodges, mm-hmm. Respect all those institutions of God, and we'll be okay.
So I'm now here with Ruby Starlight. We spoke at the Elbow River camp at the Calgary Stampede briefly. You've graciously welcomed us out here to share your church with us. Well, this building on the land that your grandfather helped build. Bruce Starlight, your uncle, shared a little bit of that story with us as well. Your grandpa, Dick Starlight, built this church. Thank you for inviting us here. Thank you for showing us around. Maybe if you could talk about what you remember, maybe any stories that you've heard from your grandpa or about your experiences in the church growing up.
I remember we used to have events where we would all pitch in and organize things to even create monies, again, because there was no monies for my grandpa's church. And it was Sister Pat at the time. And she really worked hard to do bake sales and all those things. She even took us, she raised money, like literally, I think almost $10,000. And when we got that money, some of the money, she took the patrons to Lake St. Dan. They paid for the trip for the people that cargoed in vehicles. And I very fondly remember that time with Sister Pat. A lot of families from the community went. And that was one of the times I greatly remember Sister Pat. And Brother Joshua was one of our other last laymen, our brothers or sisters that worked out here. That was the time I would have received our church key, was from Brother Joshua. But Brother Joshua also really worked hard to maintain my grandpa's church. And he would hire young men. Again, he would find ways to fundraise monies and again, pay the young men that would work here and try and up the church, whatever might need to be done. And I used to like that because it was always our poor people, the ones that could never get jobs out here, that would have something for themselves. And I really liked that, what he did for the young men out here. And I saw a lot of these struggling ones, like the ones that really drink a lot, try and take the time to be here and again, help model this church in the finery that they can fix it to. It's been really something. This church has had its days and it's showing. I'm now seeing it. I even haven't been here for a while myself, but it's really showing. And it would be nice one day to see what small stuff we can do to maintain a face again for my grandpa's church. It would be nice. I would like to try and start either trying to maintain that relationship again with my grandpa's church's congregation people and show them and share with them maybe an insight we can all do together to work towards a good way to heal and try and restore our own place of ground.
Simply put, not enough is being done by authorities to put an end to the acts of arson and vandalism at churches across this country. So Ezra Levant is offering $10,000 at findthearsonist.com to anyone who provides information that leads to an arrest and puts an end to these ridiculous crimes.
And he did all these paintings. He had asked me about, what would you like on this door? And I said, oh my gosh, gee, I don't know. And so he showed me this book. And I went through it and didn't know really much about what, it was just a bunch of pictures and writings about the faith of, I believe, the Catholics and all that. And so anyways, I saw this picture. It was in the book. And I said, I want this. And he said, sure. So he is the man who done this wonderful painting. And this painting represents the four Gospels.
We can walk over and you can show me a little more closely.
And it's really something. Today we have shoes here. These are the shoes that people have come to bring on behalf of the children that's been found. Some of these shoes have come from families that children have just come out of child welfare. So this is very significant, what it resembles and what it holds to today, some of these shoes that I know of, where they came from. And so I just want to share about the door here. And so this is the Word of God that represents the four Gospels. And it actually is the same four angels that are represented in the Revelation, actually. I wasn't even aware of that in all the years when AVA was done. I continued to learn more, but this also represents the Revelation, the four angels in Revelation. And they're very significant to its meaning. Matthew represents the man, and this is the lamb, and this one's the eagle, and this one's the part like an ox. You can see the horns. So that represents the ox, like the sacrifice and all that. So it's really a significant painting that I chose to have Hank Schwartz paint for me. And it's been quite nice all these years to have this here, and you can see it's aging. It was done in about 2005, and that's about 15 years ago. So it's really had its time, and this church is up for probably a renovation, but nothing's ever come. And I know I went to my nation before in the 1990s, maybe 95, and I asked our chief to see if they can take on the bills, because at that time I was living here. There used to be a house here, and I asked the chief, which was Sanford Big Plume, if we can help assist my grandpa's church with the bills, because Holy Spirit was having trouble obtaining some of the bills along with their church. And the funds were just not coming in from here because that's how they paid the bills, they said, was through the funds that come in. And like Ruby Starlight said, my uncle, the numbers have dropped significantly. There's only a very few that come. This church used to be full in the 80s when I was, remember, about 12 years old and growing up.
I want to thank Bruce and Ruby for sharing their story with us, sharing their church with us. Unfortunately, there was an unexpected death on the First Nations territory here, so we weren't able to access the church because of that. But they have graciously invited us back. We will have access to the church. They've also welcomed us to share in some of their traditions, to sit with them, to partake in a sweat lodge, to learn about their culture and be unified with them, to really come together. And we do want to do that. We want to honor that invitation. I want to thank you all for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Soos. If you think politicians need to take the attacks, arsons, and vandalism taking place at Christian churches more seriously, I need you to go to saveourchurches.ca and sign a petition demanding that politicians call these attacks what they are: hate crimes.